does that even mean, Bowers getting the corner?
Hey there, YouTube. We're back again today for another Thoughts from the Corner. I'm here with my good friends Lucy and Adam.
Hey.
And we're going to be talking today about Last Word Standing. Before we do that, I want to give a huge shout out to Scott, who sponsored this episode as part of the Kickstarter, and he wanted to give a shout out to... This episode was sponsored by Playmore Games Store in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Board games, Magic, Pokemon, miniatures, and more. Be sure to check that out. If you are in Gaithersburg, Maryland, that is Playmore Games. But right now, we're talking about Last Word Standing from Chronicle Books. We got a chance to play this tonight. Our first time, so this is our first impression. We played it 4 players. It's 2 to 6 players, ages 8+. It'll take about 45 to 60 minutes to play. And in Last Word Standing, this is a word game with some drafting elements where you are going to be creating a word potentially on your turn, then other people are going to try to one-up your words by making either longer words or modifying their words with action cards. And that's pretty much what the majority of the game is. You're trying to... It's really a big puzzle in your brain as you're looking at everything around the board and trying to spell particular words. Now, one interesting thing about this game that I like, and I'll talk more about later, I'm sure you guys will as well, was that the amount of letters you had to utilize constantly changed as other people built their words, because you could use letters from their words as long as you had the action cards. And so action cards became this really valuable currency in this game. But that's enough about what the actual game is. Who wants to start off telling what they thought about the game a little bit?
I liked it pretty good. It's not gonna be my favorite. I wouldn't get this for myself, but I like it. It's a nice little time killer. And you do have to do a lot of just thinking to yourself, okay, I have these many words, I have these from a card pool, I have to hope nobody takes that card. Nope, you took that card. Okay, backup plan. Okay, maybe if we do this or that. Okay, nope, that card's gone. Okay.
You're talking about during the drafting phase. Yeah. So for us, it was generally we would have at a minimum 7 cards to draft from. And the first player would get to pick one. And so that was interesting too, because some of the cards also let you draw action cards, which was super valuable, but they were really low point cards. Now, also one thing I want to mention here is you're not the biggest fan of word games, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm not the best, mainly because I'm not good at English or writing or that kind of stuff. So my vocabulary is okay, I can spell cat, and then maybe cats. So
now here's a question: have you ever found a word game that you really liked? You're like, man, I'd like to get that. Because I think that's important to know.
Not really. I think the one time Jimmy brought that book one.
Hardback?
Yes.
That one's good. Yeah,
that was a
really
nice
good
game, but I think they're just not my kind of thing.
Okay. What about you, Adam? Because I know word games are definitely your thing. Did you propose with Scrabble, if I recall correctly?
I liked it. What?
Did you propose with Scrabble?
I did.
Yeah.
With the Scrabble board. That's how I proposed to my wife. I did enjoy it. I think that, personally, that I've played other games that are a little bit better.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Other word games that are a little bit better. I did enjoy that the amount of cards that were out. It was variable. Sometimes you only had 2 cards out there, and at one point we had almost 6. We had 6 of them out there. Yeah, and so you could really make a long word, but those were also crappy letters, which is why they were out there. So it made it kind of difficult. I did like that there was that mechanic where if you're making words constantly, you're gonna have fewer letters. So it did help to wait, but you also have to anticipate okay, I know he's gonna make a really big word. I have to save my big word to overshadow his so that he gets half his points.
And I think I should cover this real quick, because that is a really interesting aspect of this game. I think is that you could make a small word every single time, and you'd be guaranteed to get half of the points of that word, or you could save up to do it, because the only way you can put out a word is if you can top the person that did it before, which makes man. Now that we're talking about it, I actually kind of think I like this a little bit more, because that actually makes it really interesting. When you go first, it's all right, should I put down a word just so later I'll be able to bump it up, or should I wait until more letters are going to be out there?
Well, that's the thing. It's if you can use the letters that are in your hand, and then later on use the ones that are out there plus other people's. If you have the action cards available, you could get a really big advantage that way. But I didn't see that happen a lot.
Because you're putting yourself at risk. Because remember that there was one whole round where we all passed because nobody wanted to be the first. Because that's the whole kind of risk. You could be the first one out and you're guaranteed to have your points, which sometimes is worth it. Because like I was playing a little bit, I think, too defensively in my case. Because like I didn't want to put a word out that wasn't worth putting out. But I also lost a lot of points because I can't put out a word later on that's less points than what's the highest number. Like at that point, you don't want to. Because on one hand, you don't want to get no points. On the other hand, you also don't want to risk somebody else getting a higher word because of the cards that you put out.
That is a good point. Like you could nickel and dime it. Like just take whatever the highest value card out there and then make a tiny word with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like how you won, like how you got a lot of points last round.
Quiz.
Was because I had like 2 vowels out when you had none.
Yes. You putting out those out there single-handedly won the game and let me make a great comeback.
Yeah.
It was really great.
And that's sort of like the whole kind of, it's a little bit of the barter, like, because that was essentially like a little mini Cold War, like, who wants to put out the first word? And we all realized too late, oh crap, nobody put out a word.
I also want to say that I really like to play reference cards, which I want to make a note of. The text was small, but it was very useful.
Oh, yeah.
Which is awesome. And then the other thing, I like the fact that you can exchange. And that was actually kind of an interesting decision. Normally, when you get rid of one card, it's not that interesting. But the fact that you can get an action card, and those action cards are insanely
it costs
valuable.
2 cards.
It does.
Usually, like, especially if you run out of your cards in your hand, you're only getting 2 at the end of the round. Mm-hmm. So having to exchange, if you want to exchange those 2 to get, like, just 1 action card, it's like, is it worth it?
That could be 1 card of anybody's on the table.
Yeah, so the action cards
including a wild.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one thing that I want to mention. The action cards always have their own, they have like unique special abilities. So you can add +3 to this, or -3 to this, or +4, or +2, or they do sort of things. But every single one also always has on the bottom 2 alternate things that you could do, which is that you can jump in turn order in the draft phase for when you're drafting out your letters. So if you see something really good like the Z, which you really want to get from
I never really utilized that. Yeah,
probably should.
That's a good point.
Or you can use someone else's letter out there, which we've alluded to a little bit, but you do have to have those action cards. There were so many times where it was like, God, if I just had 1 action card. And it really does make an interesting choice where it's like, this RN, I don't have any plans for this RN. Maybe I'll take the action card.
Yeah, I never exchanged them like that, but that is a really good point.
See, I really kind of, the more I think about it, the more I like this game. And I think what they were going for was something that you could play with people who like Scrabble, and you could play with people who play hardback, and you can meet somewhere in the middle, which by itself I think caps this game to a certain amount of greatness. As much as I want to, at least for hobby games. At least for hobby games.
This is definitely like, if you're like into it, like it's a simple game, it's a simple premise, you're spelling words, and it's like, it's not a hard game to get into. And like, I'd say like you could, like, if you're just new to board games, you could definitely just like pick this up.
Yeah.
I take back my initial response, because there's things that I did not utilize that would have changed my game quite a bit.
Then you might
I might have liked it a little better.
Yeah. But my welcome.
Did.
But there you go. So last word standing. Yeah, I think you were not so hot on it, but just.
I mean, I like it. Like, I don't dislike it, but like, this is just not my genre.
I think
like,
if you.
It would take something that probably was like the opposite of this. Yeah, it's not my thing, but I like it.
I think if you like word games, this is definitely one you might want to consider adding into your collection. It goes up to 6 players. I can imagine it'd be pretty stinking fun at 2 players as well. I think this would scale pretty well. And yeah. So in the end, that is last word standing. I look forward to playing it some more. I was debating on playing it in my classroom. It says ages 8+, but I have a feeling with this game I would really have to not just crush their faces in. Or I could just crush their faces in.
I know, you couldn't spell quizzes, so...
Okay. Apparently there's an E in quizzes. Who knew that? But let me know what the comment, or yeah, there you go. That is last word standing from, what was it, Chronicle Books. If it looks like it might be a cup of tea, be sure to check that one out. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below. If you want to support the channel, consider supporting the Patreon down below. It makes for better lighting, better audio, all that good stuff. And in the comments below, let me know. When was the last time you won something? Really, Lucy? I set up a softball for both of us.
No, someone else go first.
I won last word standing roughly about 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago.
Oh.
What's the last thing you won?
Oh, that's, something of, okay. I thought it looked something like a substance. I won the board game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you won the board game tonight, and I won the board game tonight. What's the last thing you won? Oh, not the board game tonight.
What was
Now
it?
you get it!
two board games last week.
Okay, that was last week. Let me know in the comments below. It's last time you won something, and as always, thanks for your time, you too. What was the name of that game? Jimmy's game.